Hello, my name is Brendan Hopkins, and I'm going to tell you a story of when I was an avid bowler. I was around the age 15, and I was at the bowling alley on a Sunday night with my family. My grandparents bowl on a league every Sunday, and so does my cousin and aunts and uncles. And I was in the bowling alley, and my cousin on the scoreboard had about 7 or 8 strikes in a row, and it got me very excited. And I just sat in my seat looking at him bowl, and got more excited about a sport than I have in a long time. And just watching him get closer and closer to that 300 built excitement in me. And more people come to watch him. And then it finally happened. A perfect game, 300, the first time I've ever experienced that in my life in person, and it was just exhilarating. And everyone was cheering, and the room was loud, and they announced over the intercom, Nick Devlin scored a 300 on lane 7. And this is when I decided to start bowling. Fast forward 2 months, and I'm at my first tournament with my cousin Nick, bowling on the same lane as him. And as excited as I am, I'm also equally as nervous. I'm around people who I've seen bowl hundreds of times and thought they were just so good, and here I am bowling next to them. As my first tournament, I wasn't expecting a lot, but I did learn a lot. There's 2 tournaments in a weekend, and I didn't do too good on either one, but I learned a lot from it. At the end of the year, they take the total points from each tournament, and each tournament you get a certain amount of points from what place you advance to. So first place would be getting the most points, and the 10 most point earners at the end of the year got to go to Vegas and compete with other people from other divisions. And I really had my eyes on going to Las Vegas. I didn't think I could because it was a long road in front of me. I'm a new bowler bowling against people who have been bowling for a year or two, and I have to beat them necessarily to get to Vegas, to get to enough points to get to Vegas. And the first 10 tournaments did not go so well for me. And I kept trying, but so I was behind in points, probably around 40th, 50th place, and again, only the top 10 get to go. This is where I really started practicing a lot. I started going every day, and even without a car, I was just asking my parents to drive me, or my grandparents, or just any adult figure I knew, like my sisters. And I got a coach, and I was meeting with him at least 3 times a week. And I was pushing myself harder than I've ever pushed myself. And there came to a point where I was around like 17th place in points. I was doing okay because I was picking up my game a little bit. But I still wasn't even near top 10, and I needed to get to top 10. And me and my family drove 8 hours to Klamath Falls, which is in Oregon. And I walked in, and I just kind of had a good feeling about the day. I walked in, and I liked the look of the bowling alley. I had an old, rustic kind of look, but with a new bowler's theme, and I felt at home there. It reminded me a lot of my home alley. And my first game on, my shoes fit, my hand fit in the ball, and everything just worked how it should. And the first 5 games are just shooting, and just scoring as much as you can. But after that, you get into where you play against someone else, and this is where I usually don't do so good. But my first opponent was someone I knew very well, and I was doing good all day, and they were not. So my confidence was already up there, and I ended up winning that game. and just boosting my confidence even more. And there was 4 games of that. And then I finally got to my first championship game. I was competing to get first place, and this is where all this feeling good went down the drain. I was nervous and I was scared, and my first 2 frames were not good. I was shaking in my feet. There was a camera on me. I was competing for money. It was a big deal for me as a kid, and probably for anyone as their first time. And I went back to my home crowd, my family, they were all there cheering me on, being there for me. And I went back, and they were it felt like a blanket of comfort and blanket of love and a blanket of just care. I just felt like the most care in the world, because even though I wasn't doing good, they were still so excited for me to be there. And just going back to hearing that gave me the boost I needed. There was no doubt in my mind that I was about to just take off and start scoring very high. And I walked back to the lanes, and I ended up winning. And the whole time I felt just amazing, and it wasn't even close. The score was like 100 pins apart or close to that. And that was probably one of the most exhilarating moments of my life, winning my first tournament of anything. And I went back to my family, and it was just seeing my cousin Nick there, who has mentored me through thick and thin and got me into the sport of bowling, and my grandparents who have been bowling through all their lives, like seeing how proud they were to see their son win a bowling award, or their grandson win a bowling award. It was more satisfying than anything that I've still felt to this day. And fast forward to the next day, and I feel just as good, and I win another one. And insanely enough, I jumped into the top 10, and I maintained my position in top 10 and made it to Vegas through hard work and practicing day in and day out. And I hate being on planes, but that plane ride to Vegas was the sweetest victory moment that I've had. And here we are today. I don't bowl nearly as much, if at all. I just go with friends on the very occasion. I still like to bowl. Still a very fun game for me to play. But bowling was such a big part of my life, and is still such a big part of my life, because it really taught me perseverance. It taught me mental game is sometimes much more important than physical game, because my odds were against me. I was bowling against people who've been bowling longer than me, and I knew that, and they knew that, and trying to prove myself to them, even though when I was doing bad, and it was very frustrating. I just had to prove to them that I was one of them, and persevering through frustration and losing over and over again is a tough thing to do. Just picking yourself up is what I learned, is just keep picking yourself up and you won't stay down for long. Bowling got me closer to my family. It got me closer with myself, and I am very happy that I got to experience that growing up.